Hello, my name is Kelly Brotman, and today I will be talking to you about a new method to identify the outbreak of bacterial meningitis, the serovirus 812 that has emerged recently. So, as of right now, the only way to detect this particular strain of meningitis, it's a diagnostic test that requires an intravenous dye to be injected. Um, so this particular method, it is invasive because it is a fairly large needle that needs to inject a large volume of the dye. There is a risk of side effects. Anytime that you add a substance to an individual, that person risks reacting to that substance. And the risks are compounded by the fact that this dye is designed to move through the blood throughout the entire body. So the risk of side effects is pretty great because you can have a substantial systemic reaction. And lastly, it's very costly. The equipment you need to capture the imaging is expensive, and you also need to have a highly trained professional to be able to interpret the results. So the new proposal will be a sandwich assay, and this will, you can see there's an image of a sandwich assay on the left, that it's essentially a membrane that will detect the bacterial antigen. So the little Y-shaped thing in red, that's the antibody that is bound to the membrane. When the patient adds the sample, if there is antigen from the bacteria present in the sample, in this case it's going to be urine, it's going to attach to the antibody. So that's the green ball on the left. After adding a series of reagents, then you will see a color change, and that shows up as a line. So below is a typical sandwich assay cassette, and you can see that on the right-hand side of it, there's a little well to add the sample, and there's a control line, and if the sample is positive, there will be a positive test line. So this is a waived test, which means that a number of unlicensed professionals will be able to utilize it because of the ease of the test. And it's designed to detect the bacterial metabolite in urine. So it's a much less invasive way of detecting this bacterial meningitis. So here's the data for this new test. So you can see that of the number of people diseased, there were 1,400, and 8,600 people were not diseased. So by using this new screening test, the people that had a positive screen, it was a little over 8,400, 8,417, and those that had a negative screen, which was much less, 1,483. So now, instead of just looking at those numbers, we want to know, of the people that have the disease, how many of them had a positive screen. So that will be our sensitivity. So we have 1,274 that had a positive screen out of the total 1,400 with the disease. That's a 91% sensitivity, which is pretty good. That's a pretty high number. For the specificity, we want to know, of the people that are not diseased, how many of them had a negative screen. So that's 1,357 out of a total of 8,600 people not diseased. That's a little over 15% for a negative screen. So the specificity of this test is fairly low. That is one downside of it. But now we want to look at, of the people that have a positive screen, what's the likelihood that those people have the disease? So a positive screening test, will it be able to accurately predict if the person has the disease or not? So we look at the number of people with the disease compared to how many people tested positive. And again, this is a pretty low number. It comes out to be a little over 15%. But when we look at the opposite, of the people that have a negative screening test, how many of them don't have the disease, that's a much better indication. So we have 1,357 people out of a total of 1,483 that tested negative. So the negative predictive value is 91.5. Again, a very impressive number. So when you look at all the numbers together, sensitivity, specificity, negative predictive value, and positive predictive value, the summary of this test is that not only is it cost efficient and user-friendly, but it's very good at ruling out the disease. So by looking at this data, the negative predictive value is such that if you have a negative test result, chances are you do not have the disease. And likewise, if you have the disease, chances are you did screen positive for it. So the sensitivity is pretty high as well. Thank you for listening to my presentation, and hopefully we can combat this disease together.